Her Fantasy Football Week 11. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio /Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. You can also hear us on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Saturday night from 8 to 10 Eastern. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com so you can play our fabulous fun game Diced on FanDuel. And you can chat with us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook /Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I am Brandon Marianne Lee.
Yay.
I just almost botched my name there because I all week had planned on saying my middle name like Brandon, and then I fumbled it.
Fumble.
Drop the ball.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Week 11, get them out of your lineups. These teams are on bye. Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints, New York Giants, and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Johnny Manziel's the new starting quarterback because Mike Pettin lost.
He did. He lost.
I love the way they worded it, too. At least what I read was that upper management strongly encouraged Johnny Manziel. And they said, the way they worded it was like, we were happy to help out. Or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I bet that's how Mike Pettin's viewing it right now. We were happy to help.
Mike Pettin has done everything humanly possible to not start Johnny Manziel. This is a big defeat for him.
He did make a comment how he had improved a little bit, but...
Oh, sure. I mean, he probably has a soul, but other than that, he's like, please. Well, they have to prove what they have, and they don't.
Yeah. And then Ben Roethlisberger comes in and is the offensive player of the week when he wasn't even supposed to be playing.
The backup.
Breaking records for the backup quarterback.
That was so absurd. I was like, he is not eligible to break records for backup quarterbacks, but he's actually the starter.
But he was listed as the backup.
It should not technically be so. It's ridiculous. And I'll tell you what, I can't remember where I read this, but it was exactly what I was thinking, which is, this is not good. Like, they should have let him sit and rest. I'm worried about his health long term. They let him play beat up a lot. And that does permanent damage.
He wants
I know.
It's not head injuries. This was a foot or whatnot. I mean,
it's always something.
He is always broken, and he does always play, and that is why we love him in fantasy.
As I say, this is why there's so many documentaries. It's for the love of the game.
But
that's what
I do agree. Although he felt he was ready this week. This was the one reason why I will disagree here is that he was campaigning to play. He felt ready, and they did try to sit him, and their hand was forced. I mean, Michael Vick wasn't an option. I mean, Heath Miller was the backup quarterback that game to Ben Roethlisberger. Do you guys know that?
Yeah. And it was the whole thing was absurd.
I wish we could have seen Heath Miller at QB for
I know.
I was like, come
on. Me too. I totally did. And Eli Manning's still the quarterback for the Giants, so there's that. And that's our news for the teams on byes, guys. That's all we got. Oh, and Rob Ryan got fired. Defensive coordinator for the Saints. Which really, I'll tell you really why it sucks is because the one thing that was consistent in the NFL was that you could play anybody against the New Orleans Saints.
We all jumped on Kirk, and he was balling.
Bam, bam. What did I say?
I'm a little surprised it took this long because the Saints D has been really bad.
So bad.
Really bad.
I know, but now that they changed the coaches, you have to question whether or not you can play somebody against the Saints defense because of that energy the teams get when people start getting fired. It's sad.
Well, and they all like Rob Ryan because he's a Ryan.
He's a Ryan. It's true. It's true.
He was horrific.
Really bad.
Really bad. Miss the guys in the stands, the fans that were dressed as Sean Payton and Rob Ryan every game. And I was like, so good. That hair, that flowy.
At least they waited till after Halloween. We can all thank them for that.
If I had any progeny, I'd dress them like Rob Ryan.
Mm.
That'd be fun. That. Little baby is Rob Ryan with a little belly.
Oh yeah.
Little cute.
All right, well, let's get into the games that are actually going on in Week 11. Thursday night game, Tennessee Titans 2-7, the Jacksonville Jaguars 3-6. I just say these teams are better than their records.
I
At least the Jaguars for sure. Well, let's get into the Titans. The Tennessee has had a tough time getting anything started last Sunday, which I thought they would. I hope you didn't start them. As for this week, this is a great matchup, and a team should look at if you need somebody to fill in that roster spot. Again, you guys, this is the Tennessee Titans is the junk house. Mariota has been up and down this season for sure, but the Jaguars give it the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So if you need 15 points out of your quarterback, Mariota is your guy. He will get you that, and he could get you more than that, right? I mean, he did have 33 points the week before last, so it is possible. But 15, I think, is where we're at. The floor is high. Delaney Walker is always a must-start. With 2 top tight ends on bye, Delaney is a top 6 tight end this week, no questions. Antonio Andrews was only able to get 8 yards off 11 attempts last week against Carolina.
So bad.
So bad. McCluster was able to find the end zone, but only had 2 attempts. Many believe the Titans should involve rookie David Cobb. This might be a good matchup on paper for the Jaguars. This might be a good matchup on paper because the Jaguars look like they're easy to run on. But the Jaguars were able to stop Forsett, Gore, Miller, and Jonathan Stewart to under 10 fantasy points this year. So it doesn't look that good, you guys. It doesn't look that
All
good.
those names are better than David Cobb or Antonio Andrews. Yeah.
Or McCluster.
Dexter McCluster. Although Dexter McCluster, I do love that name. Yeah, so it's not my favorite. Another Titans, So that's where we are. Not my favorite. Antonio Andrews is almost like at the point where we just don't start him anymore unless he's in that flex position. Another Titans wide receiver is injured. Justin Hunter has been placed on IR. Your only options are Harry Douglas and Darrell Green-Beckham. Both are scary options, but they are your only options for the Tennessee Titans. That's it, you guys. I know Mariota's sad too. So only play them if you're really desperate in deep leagues. But again, everybody got 7 points 2 weeks ago, so it's possible. And some are streaming Tennessee's defense, but listen, the Jacksonville Jaguars score points. And if Allen Hurns isn't injured enough and he plays, I'm not going up against the Allen's brothers. I'm not doing it. So I have him ranked 16th.
Allen Hurns has been playing hurt this whole time.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, I have him ranked 16th because I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are too legit.
Could he be the Ben Roethlisberger of wide receivers? Could he be?
Could he be?
I hope so. Let's
get into it.
Because he did it again. Allen Hurns has now scored in 7 straight games after finding the end zone against the Ravens last week. He's dealing with a core injury and expected to play this week after seeing a specialist to review what to do with his sports hernia. That doesn't sound good. All this specialist and hernia talk is a bit scary, but he did return to practice Tuesday and has been making regularly scheduled visits with hernia specialist Dr. William Myers. And this has been, going on for weeks now. So this is nothing new. Like Brian said, he's been playing hurt pretty much all season. Now, he may undergo surgery for the hernia after the season, but at the moment, I'm going to say this is nothing to be concerned about. Because he's playing on it, he's playing with it, and he's practicing in full. So,
yeah, as long as his kidneys are okay.
Well, even that apparently is touch and go this year.
Yeah.
Maybe you can play, maybe you can't. I don't know. So, I mean, I wouldn't think you could play with a sports hernia, but apparently so. So, I'm rolling with Allen Hurns still. Now, if Marquise Lee, who came back from his own injury, which was a hamstring injury, and Allen Robinson, the other part of the Allen brothers, as Courtney was speaking of, they'd be the 2 players to benefit the most if Hurns is limited. But I don't see him being limited this week.
Robinson will do fine regardless.
He will do fine regardless, exactly.
I wonder what the statistical probability is of having 2 Allens at the wide receiver position in the NFL. I bet it's very, very small.
I'm trying to think of another Allen with the first name in the NFL.
Yeah. Any given Sunday, guys. Any given Sunday.
I was going to look for my phone and look it up, but I don't have it.
Yeah.
There's Dwayne Allen.
But Allen has to be the first name.
So technical.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bortles.
Anyway.
Bortles. He was 20 for 45 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. So another, pretty good performance from Bortles. It's starting to become week in, week out for him in terms of fantasy production. If you're watching the game, it's maybe a little ugly. They won a game that perhaps they shouldn't have won. You know what? Hey, he throws up decent points for you every week, so you can't complain. TJ Yeldon, he's dealing with a foot injury. This team is a little beat up if you can't tell, and is being monitored this week. He was spotted wearing a walking boot on Monday, but the good news is he's out of the walking boot right now and says that he's fine to play. He is listed as questionable, so keep an eye on him. If Yeldon can't go, I think Denard Robinson would likely be the one to get the start. But I think Yeldon's going to go. I think they're just being conservative in terms of holding him out of practice.
Nice. All right, Sunday, Indianapolis Colts 4-5, Atlanta Falcons 6-3. Hassel is back. Yes.
Hasselback.
Hassel is back.
I said Hassel is back.
It's my
I'm
favorite
like
thing
the
to
TV
watch.
show.
She has a pet name for him.
Hassel back on the morning show on Sunday on the fantasy show, talking about his brother. It's like my favorite. It's a good moment.
It is a good moment, and
Probably the only time he's happy.
I like Hasselback. But first, we'll talk about Andrew Luck, because as Courtney says, there's no reason for Hasselback to be playing if Andrew Luck's playing. But he's not playing. Speaking of those pesky kidneys, livers, all that kind of stuff.
Ew.
But anyway, Chuck Pagano had a few words about Andrew Luck. What he said was, and I quote, "We're going to talk every day until he figures it out and we figure it out as a team." And this is in terms of his changing his running style. Okay, he says he knows full well that he can't do that. He can't put himself and this team in jeopardy. You love the grit and you love the toughness and all that stuff, but playing the position like a linebacker, you can't. I love that. Asked whether Luck could do anything in terms of conditioning at the moment, Pagano basically said there wasn't anything immediately that he could do. It sounds like they're just having some serious hearts-to-hearts as to his aggressiveness to play, I guess, in terms of his running. So that should be interesting. He's out for the next few weeks, which, as Courtney said, brings in Hasselback.
Hasselback.
I know it sounds crazy, and this is really not a good matchup. But he did pretty darn well when he played earlier this year. And there's some big players out, Roethlisberger, Breeze, and Eli. I'm just saying, if you're in a league where there's not a whole lot that you can do in terms of who else can play this quarterback, maybe you've got someone like who's doing really bad at quarterback.
Blaine Gabbert.
I'd play Hasselbeck over Gabbert.
Yeah, I would too.
Would you?
That's about it.
I was like, you wouldn't play Hasselbeck over Gabbert? No, there's been some quarterbacks that have not done well this year.
Tons. Tannehill.
Tannehill's been done terrible.
Great one.
Spotty.
Matt Ryan even. About to talk about.
I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
It's no Kirk Cousins of Week 10.
No
all
Kirk
right,
Cousins.
people, don't jump on that bandwagon. This is desperado.
This is desperate play, or you're like in a 2-quarterback league, and you could start a quarterback. I'm just saying, I think you'll have an okay game.
Pick him up.
Pick him up if you're desperate. Anyway, Gore, though, I like him this week a lot. He's got a good matchup with the Falcons. He gives up the 7th most points to running backs, and they have a backup quarterback in, which I think means they're going to rely a little bit more on the run than usual, and they need to get a run game solidified and going there. So I like Gore this week. I'm not so sure I would start anyone else other than maybe Fleener. I know that also sounds crazy. Maybe I've taken crazy pills today. But I think he can find the end zone. And Andre Johnson played well when Hasselback was in as well. T.Y. did not connect all that great with Hasselback. I don't love that one. I mean, it's just not great in terms of the matchup. They give up the 3rd fewest points to wide receivers. It's a bad matchup there. They get the 6th most to tight ends. So that's why I think Fleener could possibly find the end zone. It's the 3rd fewest to quarterbacks. It's not an easy matchup. I'm just saying, if you need to dig deep.
Dig deep.
Dig deep with the Hasselbeck.
All right, the Falcons. The Falcons are coming off a bye, and that is a good thing. I like teams coming off a bye, especially when they're facing the Colts that don't have luck. Devontae Freeman has had 13 fantasy points in Standard League's last 3 games, and that is with only 1 touchdown. So obviously he is still a big part of the game. The Colts are the best at stopping the running backs. compared to other things. But they still give up the 12th most fantasy points to running back. So you are starting him. Julio Jones is a must-start every week. He is averaging over 15 targets a game and has found the end zone twice in the last 3 games. Duh. Jacob Tamme is a must-start.
Yeah.
He has seen an average of 11 targets in the last 2 games and has had 164 yards and a touchdown in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So that is a must-start dude, guys. The Colts give up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends. If Owen Daniels can get 16 fantasy points against them, then God only knows what Tamme can do. I'm into it. Leonard Hankerson is listed as questionable, but should return this week with a very favorable matchup. I think Matt Ryan will be looking more towards Tamme and obviously Julio. But Hankerson is an option out there, you guys.
Yeah.
For Matt Ryan, he's been all over the board this year. Talk about inconsistent. This could be a good game for him. I'm guessing anywhere between 17 and 21 fantasy points is kind of like where the rough estimate is what other quarterbacks are doing, what he's kind of been up to. And if that's good enough for you, then you can play him. But he has had 3 games under that in the last 5 games. So under 17 points. 3 out of 5. So that's not awesome stats. You can start the kicker, Matt Bryant, and the defense that's facing the hassle is back. They're a good start this week as well.
He'll get hassled, all right.
You'll get hassling. All right. Let's do this. St. Louis Rams 4-5. Hassling.
Is that Bush? Are you singing Bush?
No.
Oh my gosh,
so.
you're singing Glycerine as
Courtney's too
Hassling.
young to even know Glycerine as a song.
I think that's what she's doing.
Maybe unconsciously. She doesn't even.
Unconsciously.
Yeah.
Totally.
Off the rails. Off the rails.
I would
St.
never
Louis Rams
compare
for the 3rd time,
Hasselbeck.
people. 4-5, and Baltimore Ravens 2-7.
Let's be clear. We would never compare Hasselbeck to Gavin Rosdale.
No.
Never.
Hasselbeck would never cheat on his wife.
That's true.
He's also not.
That too. That too.
I don't know if that is true. I don't know.
So the Rams, super exciting. So Nick Foles completed 17 of his 36 pass attempts for only 200 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception last week against the Bears. The Rams have decided to bench Foles and are moving on with Case Keenum this week. Does anyone else feel like this is a bit of a scare tactic? I mean, they signed an extension with Foles in the beginning of the season, and I, for one, do not think Case Keenum is the answer. I get they're changing things up, but what do you guys think?
I think they'll keep Case in for the game, and it's such a good matchup. I'm playing Case Keenum in daily lineups because he's the cheapest option ever.
Over Hasselbeck?
Oh, yeah, in that matchup.
You crazy.
The Ravens give up the 2nd most points to opposing quarterbacks.
They
Yeah,
do.
Atlanta
They
was
do.
tough.
Wide receivers.
I know,
Atlanta's a
Brandon,
tougher
but they
defense.
have terrible receivers.
Hasselbeck only scores 10 or 14 points even when he's having a good game. That's not good enough. At least Case Keenum has a higher ceiling. He has a lower floor, but he has a way higher ceiling. If you're playing daily, you want...
Does he have a higher ceiling?
Yes, we don't know with the Rams because he hasn't played a snap yet, but in life.
Yeah. I
higher
think the
ceiling.
ceiling's pretty capped out with the Rams. So the good news...
Tavon Austin.
Highly
Yeah, well, how many
disagree.
points did he get last week?
Yeah,
One?
Yeah. Tavon Austin's back to the Austin we knew who punks you week in and week out. He had 2 catches for 5 yards, Brandon. 2.
So good.
And he was
so
just targeted
good.
4 times.
And this
My
week about
FanDuel
40
lineup, I did everybody that was boomer bust, and all of them busted. It
All
was
of them bust.
amazing.
Yeah, he
all
is
of them.
uber
Except
bust.
yeah.
And just when you think you can maybe count on him because he was starting to pick up some steam, boom, new quarterback situation, which could be good, could be bad. Ugh, I hate it. The good news, though, is that Wes Walker didn't die. He's
That was
alive.
good.
He's still
Yes,
alive.
He's still alive. Yay.
Posted 3 receptions for 32 yards and was targeted 6 times.
It's great.
Not a horrendous first outing, but also nothing special.
Well, for just being picked up, I think it's fabulous. I'm excited for his future.
If we're going to talk about good floors, though, we're going to talk about Todd Gurley.
Mm-hmm.
in a not so great game where they could really not get things going for 4 full quarters. He rushed 12 times for 45 yards and a touchdown, and he also had 3 receptions for another 44 yards. And sadly, guys, his 44 yards was a team high in receptions.
Tavon Austin, week 11, I'm telling you.
Oh, my God. All right, guys, set your FanDuel team with Hasselbeck, Tavon Austin. You're never going to listen to us again.
You got to set 2 lineups because you have to have Case Keenum in one, and you have
right.
to have Hasselbeck in the other. I like this, guys. We're going downhill real fast.
How long you don't do any of this? I'm talking down.
Absolutely not. Never, ever in a million years would you do that.
All right, Ravens.
I'm just going to say no. That's my analysis. No. Joe Flacco was a great option last week, just like we said he would be. That Jaguars Ravens game, we were like, this is juicy, and it was.
Juicy.
He completed 34 of his 45 pass attempts for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also threw 2 picks, but who's counting? 20.34 fantasy points. But he's not good when he plays good defenses. 0.68 points at Denver in week 1 and 12.08 points at Arizona in week 7. Now, he is on his home turf, but St. Louis is legit as far as defense is concerned, even though the Bears exploded. But I think the Bears are better than you think they are as long as Alshon Jeffrey's on the field, but we'll talk about them later. You can play him next week at Cleveland for sure, but I would stream someone else this week. St. Louis gives up the 2nd fewest points to opposing quarterbacks, even with Jay Cutler doing a good job last week. It is what it is. Justin Forsett continues to disappoint. They refuse to let him touch the ball 20 times a game, and that makes him ineffectual. Running the ball is a way to beat the Rams. They gave up the 15th most points to opposing running backs, which is by far the best matchup, but I don't know. He had a nice stretch from week 4 to 7, so there's a possibility, but it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough. If you have
a better option.
Yeah, you probably have to start him, but you're going to probably expect if you're in standard leagues, 8 points, 10 points maybe. But he's not going to blow up. It's not one of those matchups.
Yeah.
Last week, Kamar Aiken got by far the most targets at 14, but he only caught 7 of them for 73 yards. And then the touchdowns went to Chris Givens, Crockett Gilmore, and Max Williams.
Yeah.
St. Louis gives up the 2nd fewest points to opposing wide receivers, so... but again, if you're in a PPR league, Kamar Aiken, 14 targets, you just can't argue with that. So, and Chris Givens is the guy that's going long, getting touchdowns. We interviewed a Ravens beat writer last week, and it was exactly what he said it would be.
Yep.
Spot on. And I like Crockett Gilmore when healthy. 4 more targets in all of his games, but 1 this season, 4 touchdowns in his 7 appearances. St. Louis gives up the 17th most points to tight ends. It's kind of in that running back territory where probably one of them will score. I'm leaning towards Crockett Gilmore scoring rather than Justin Forsett, but yeah, where I am.
I think there's room for both, because I think they're going to get 17 points. That's what I think. That's what I'm predicting. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 4-5. The Philadelphia Eagles 4-5.
This is the week where you can start Mike Evans. You guys, Mike Evans, if you're in a PPR league, you have to start him because he was targeted 19 times.
That is so many targets.
He only caught 9 again.
Well, of course.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But still, a guy with 9 catches right there, that's 4.5 points without him doing anything else if you're in a PPR, a half-point PPR league. 9 points if you're in a full point. Can't debate that. It just is what it is. But when you watch him, it's super frustrating. And if you're in a standard league, you're going to be a little frustrated because the guy hasn't scored a touchdown since week 7, and that's the only touchdown he has scored all year. Philadelphia does give up the 3rd most points to opposing wide receivers, but, it is what it is. And he's the only guy that they're throwing to.
But
there are only 2 things that are happening.
On a bad week, he has 150 yards and a touchdown. So says Mike Evans.
Right.
Brian looked confused, like, no, he doesn't.
I was like, he obviously doesn't look at his own roto ball. But I was like, that is not what's happening. Philadelphia's tough against the run, really tough, 5th least in the league. And last week, Doug Martin did kind of get his groove back, which I said he would. 18 carries, 63 yards, caught all 4 of his targets for 40 yards, a good solid 100 yards total on the game. This will be a little bit tougher. I can't suggest Sims anymore. He just isn't doing anything. Frankly, this is the whole offense is simply throwing the ball at Mike Evans, him not catching it, and then every once in a while letting Doug Martin run. That's it. Those are the only people you can own on this team. If you have anyone else on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can let them go immediately. Jameis Winston, he's going to get you 12 to 18 points every week. It is what it is. Going over that is borderline impossible. Going under that's borderline impossible because you know what? Mike Evans will catch half of his targets. But they'll be productive. Someone get this guy some crab legs, right? Got to get him some energy. Got to keep him going. He had 2 interceptions
Get the
last
protein.
week. Yeah, get some protein in there. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Done.
Nice. Done. Awesome. Eagles. Sam Bradford suffered a concussion in a separated left shoulder on Sunday against Dallas. He is yet to be cleared to play on Sunday. If he is sidelined, you are looking at Mark Sanchez.
Mark.
Either way, you shouldn't start either of them. Bradford's useless, and I guess in 2 quarterback leagues you can totally do it. Go for it. At this point, Ryan Matthews is not looking good to play this week after suffering a concussion as well. He still got you 10 fantasy points before exiting the game in the 3rd quarter, so you can't be mad at the backup running back getting you 10 fantasy points, only playing 2.5 quarters. Give me a break. This is good news for DeMarco Murray owners. Excuse me. He will need all the help he can get, averaging under 3 yards a carry. 3 out of the last 6 games, the Bucs held the running backs to under 6 fantasy points.
They're good.
And haven't allowed a rushing touchdown in the last 8 games. So that's a thing. That is a thing. You probably don't have any better options than Murray, but you might want to start looking for him. Might want to start rolling those dices because that's a scary matchup. I told you, play Jordan Matthews. Play him at your own risk. I'd rather have 19 points blowing up on my bench than 4 points on the field. And sure as blank, he got you 2 fantasy points, you guys. He got you 2 fantasy points on your roster because you didn't listen to me.
Is he droppable?
Yes.
I think so. I think so. I
How
can't.
are they moving the ball?
It's crazy. It's random. It's always random. It's somebody new every year. You hate Bill Belichick. I'm so over Bill Belichick. I hate Chip Kelly. I hate Chip Kelly with every part of my body. I hate this man. I will never draft anybody from his teams ever again because this is what he does. Jordan Matthews is a very, very talented receiver. There is no excuse why you're not using him.
Well,
So Marky Mark has better
quarterback play. Yeah.
Marky Mark had great chemistry with Jordan Matthews last year. Do you think that there's a possibility that could be ignited again?
I think it's all up to what Chip Kelly wants to do, and that this offseason he has changed so much up that I don't know what his plan is.
Okay.
You know, I
Good
just
point.
don't. He only saw 5 targets last week, so it's not like they're trying to get the ball to him and he's not making plays.
He and Mike
You know,
Evans
it's-
should switch places.
Yeah. I was just thinking the
Seriously.
same thing. I was like, can you even get
Seriously.
like half of Mike Evans' targets? Just half.
Seriously, it just is what it is. Last week, Des Bryant only got 4 fantasy points against Tampa Bay, and that was with 12 targets. So I'm not starting Jordan Matthews. Again, I'd rather him blow up on my bench than him screw over my game. Zach Ertz had his best game of the season with 68 yards.
Yeah.
Still hasn't found the end zone and still isn't fantasy relevant. Unless you need a guy that's going to get you 4 fantasy points. He will get you 4. He will do that. Brent Selleck had 134 yards last week off of 4 receptions.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. And that was his second double-digit game. But don't get crazy, people. He had a total of 11 yards the 3 games before.
Yeah.
So it's a
Brutal.
total. It was in 1 game. The other 2, he got zeros. So let me say this. Yeah, just the Eagles are not to be trusted. Chip Kelly is out to get you. Oakland Raiders 4-5. Detroit Lions 2-7.
This is my favorite game of the week.
No,
Really, it is.
It could be a really interesting game. It could be juicy, Brandon. It's got the
Gooey.
potential to be juicy and gooey. I agree. Derek Carr, I still love him. He had his third straight 300-yard passing game. He completed 29 of 43 passes. He had 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But again, who's counting? I love this guy. I love his consistency. I love that he throws around 40 passes week in and week out. You are going to score and rack up fantasy points when you air the ball out that much. It's pure and simple. You're just going to. I love him. And the Lions give the 3rd most points to quarterbacks. So Derek Carr should have another gooey, delicious week this week. Now, Latavius Murray, let's break this down. He hasn't scored in 4 weeks. Now, some people are complaining that he is averaging around 85.6 yards in the last 3 weeks. But hey, snap out of it, people. That isn't bad week of rushing yards. When you're averaging almost 90 rushing yards, that's good. The problem is they're missing the touchdowns. That's where the problem is. If he scored a touchdown, you'd be more than happy with Latavius Murray right now. Here's the thing. They could bounce back this week, as the Lions defense is allowing 103 rushing yards and more than 1 rushing touchdown per game this year. So this is Latavius Murray's week. He's going to score a touchdown. I feel it. I feel good about it. He'll probably be around 100 if he's averaging almost 90 yards a game anyway. He'll probably be right there, that 100 range, and he'll score a touchdown. I like it. Now, Cooper had some nice yards as well with 79 yards, but he couldn't find the end zone. We need Cooper to be the kind of player where he finds the end zone every week. He should be that player. He is the main target on the team. I don't understand. Now, he is getting there, people. Remember, he is a rookie, but we don't care if you're a rookie or what on fantasy football. We just want you to score points. But if you are in a dynasty format, remember, make sure you're obviously not going to get rid of Cooper. Keep him. He will be better next year. They're going to find a better groove. And maybe even in the next few games he'll do it. But he needs to start finding the end zone consistently.
It's the Raiders, people. What were you expecting?
Yeah, they're doing so much better.
He is like an all-star. He's like the best thing to hit, right?
And defenses are covering him like crazy.
Yeah, he's doing
That's
fabulous.
what I'm saying. He's a rookie. He's going to get better at figuring out how to break out of, corner coverage and whatnot. He will get better, and I do think Crabtree on the team also helps because they have a viable wide receiver too. That is going to open up Cooper. But I'm just saying, like, take a breath, hold on. He's still like scoring you decent points. His floor is high. His floor is very high.
Obviously, you guys aren't Des Bryant owners because I want to die.
Well,
yeah, I am.
I don't have to cover that team, but I do want to talk about Clive Walford though. He's had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games.
Yeah, he has.
They are starting to really incorporate the tight end in terms of the end zone. This guy gets virtually no targets outside of the end zone. But if you need 7 points and you need to take a chance on a guy and you're desperate, take a chance on Clive. Why not?
I've played him the last 2 weeks. It's paid off for me.
Yeah, they got the 8th most points to tight ends. So he may very well score another touchdown this week. Sometimes you got to play some risky players hoping to have a higher ceiling, and he's got a chance of scoring a touchdown this week, a very good chance of scoring a touchdown this week. So Clive Walford, think about it.
He's a repeat offender. I like that.
In the best kind of
In
way.
the end zone.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Lions. Lance Moore is someone of interest to me, much like Clive Walford that we just talked about. Moore hasn't been targeted much. Other than the end zone, again. He's targeted in the end zone. He's also had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks, and he threw up over 100 yards against the Bears in Week 6. So he's a decently high ceiling. Crazy low floor, but a decently high ceiling. So if you need someone, if you're in one of those situations where it's like, I can't get just 4 points this week, I need someone to score more than that, he's an option. Calvin Johnson caught 6 passes for 81 yards. And I got a little nervous when he jumbled the ball, that late kick for the onside kick there. They almost lost. But
they caused it a fumble, though. He got negative points off of it.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Lions pull off a very big win. Congrats to you guys. Would have been like 25 years since they had won Lambeau Field. Something crazy like that. Insane. So congrats there. I think he'll be fine. They give the 14th fewest points to wide receivers, but Calvin Johnson seems to always find a way to still get you points. And Stafford had a decent matchup this week, so you can stream him. They're on the verge of really starting to click in terms of connecting with the wide receivers and the quarterback. So I think he could return to his 300-plus yards form. This could be the week.
Oh.
You never know. It could be the week. They give the 7th most points to quarterbacks, the Raiders, so maybe Stafford's going to click in. Now, Matt Prater, guys, we do talk about kickers here. He missed 2 extra points.
I'm so sad.
Yet he had 2 field goals from 49 and 51. And we are, again, Broncos fans, and we had Matt Prater forever. And we knew that Prater definitely had the leg. He could always sit there and hit the long kick, but
just let the man drink already. It's affecting his game.
You got to make those extra points, buddy. So
get him a beer.
It is. And in case I've not stressed enough, you do not play a single Lions running back. I don't care how nice this matchup looks. You don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, Denver Broncos 7-2. The Chicago Bears 4-5. We've had the Hassle is back. We've had Case Keenum. Now we have the Broncos weather. Peyton Manning is suffering from being old and will be sidelined on Sunday.
Yeah.
Hey, he's got a real injury, not just old.
Well, you don't know that.
No. He's just old. It's cute. There's so many fun memes out there. Okay, again, we're Denver Broncos fans. Love Peyton Manning. But it's like, we have this satire newspaper called The Onion, and it's got like Peyton Manning, and he's like, Justin, Peyton Manning will have to finish the season with an assistant dog. And it's him with his dog on the field. Have you seen that one?
Like a service dog?
Like a service dog.
Aww.
He needs so much help.
I don't think he's over, guys. I don't. He looked good against the Packers. I was at the game. Talk about painful. I was glad to see history, and then I wish I would have left immediately afterwards because it was so awful.
You saw history. First time Peyton Manning was ever benched. You know what? I'm not dissing Peyton Manning. Much respects. Love him. But we're moving on for Week 11. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Brock Osweiler's first NFL start. And I'm sure everyone on the Broncos are scared of the unknown. I get it. And I think Osweiler is going to be a good quarterback once he gets there and really has the chance to be the starter. And you might think this is a good matchup, but in reality, there have only been 3 quarterbacks to score over 17 fantasy points. And 2 of them were in the first 2 games of the season against the Bears. So it's not actually a good matchup. This is not my favorite for him. He's fine to start in a 2-quarterback league. But, if you're in a 10-man league or under, I don't think Osweiler is the guy you want to be streaming this week. I know it's the Bears, but the Bears aren't as bad as you think.
So no, they're not. Play Hasselbeck instead, Courtney?
I don't know. I was just saying, you see Broncos, great. You see they're going against the Bears, great. And you think, I'll just try it out. Daily, fine, try it out. And season long, I would not do it. The word on the street is that the Broncos are going to be focusing on the run game this Sunday. Not good news for Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, and clearly not good news for the Denver Broncos, seeing how the running game has not been awesome. But Sanders is listed as questionable, so keep an eye on his injury report. They did activate him last week, and he had 0 catches. So that was not nice. So if he doesn't practice with the new QB, I'm not playing him even if he is activated.
I had
just not doing it.
I had Emmanuel Sanders in my lineup, and I was just debating. I was like, gosh, do I play him? Do I play Jeremy Maclin? I feel like the ceiling's higher for Sanders because that was my only options, right? I had no one else.
Right.
And I was like, well, Manson got me 0, but I don't feel too awful because Jeremy Maclin got me 1.7. So I was like, right. Yeah, I didn't lose my game.
I was going to say, who did have the higher ceiling? I couldn't even remember how bad either of them were.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah. It's sad. Ronnie Hillman is obviously the clear number 1 guy in Denver. I am going to play him, and I'm going to feel good about it. I am. It's, he has been productive. He had 11 points last, and it is what it is, guys. It's not a high ceiling, but it's there. Yeah. So whatever. I hate Owen Daniels. Thank you. I said his name right. There's the other guy. I don't say his name right. I don't know. I hate this guy.
No, this guy. You would say Daniel Owens.
Daniel Owens. Yeah, that's what his name is. That's right.
Total disrespect.
Should be disrespect. But with that said, I love tight ends with new quarterbacks. I do. And since Vernon Davis isn't picking up the Denver's offense very fast, Daniels will be the guy. He is listed as questionable, and his performance on the field is still listed as questionable as well. So play at your own risk, my friends. He's questionable all over the board. If you need a wide receiver in deep leagues, Andre Caldwell is your guy. Even pick him up. If you have room, pick him up. It's possible Emmanuel Sanders will not be playing, and he will be the one who's going to see the benefits from that. The Broncos' defense hasn't had a turnover in the last 3 games. I'm not giving up on them, you guys. The Bears have had 4 turnovers in the last 2 games, so it's possible. Yeah. Do it again against the Bears, just one more time.
Do it.
Do it.
Well, my little contrarian play, Jeremy Langford, worked out last week.
Yes.
Jeremy Langford is a baller. Last week in St. Louis, he carried the ball 20 times for 73 yards and a touchdown, caught 7 of his 9 targets for 109 yards and a touchdown. Now, unfortunately, Matt Forte might come back this week. I think, unfortunately, Langford may have played all of them into a timeshare.
Yeah.
I want everyone to be disgusted by that because it's disturbing. How can they put him on the bench now?
And he's their future because they're going to get rid of Forte in the offseason.
Exactly. This is really bad.
It is really bad for Forte owners.
It's a bad matchup.
And Langford owners.
And Langford owners, for everybody. It's a bad matchup, so if you are able to find other options, like let's say that you picked up Langford but you don't have Forte, you're like one of those people, check the injury report. Matt Forte may or may not be back, but this could be dicey big time, the give and the take away. I know that Denver has a stellar defense, and they will be motivated to play exceptionally well because they have a new quarterback, and they feel like they need to defend it and everything else. Jake Cutler and Alshon Jeffrey are a combo made in heaven. They are just doing it. As long as Alshon Jeffrey is healthy and on the field, Jake Cutler's numbers are great. Alshon Jeffrey's numbers are great. There's no reason to bench them in this matchup. I know. It's a terrible matchup. I just don't think, A, you have anyone better, and B, it's a contrarian play of the century because kind of like against St. Louis. St. Louis has a great defense too. And now they're at home. Denver has to go to Chicago as opposed to being at St. Louis. So I think this is going to be a bizarre game. That's what I'm going to say. I just think it's going to be a bizarre game. So I wouldn't sit them. But not fine is Martellus Bennett. There are a lot of good tight ends in the game right now, and Bennett has had another disappointing outing in Week 10. He caught all 3 of his targets for 18 yards. That's it. More disturbing is that Zach Miller caught 5 of his targets, all 5 of his targets for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns.
So irritating.
What a jerk.
And then he also scored a touchdown in Week 9. Now, I'm not saying go out and pick up Zach Miller. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying this is troubling to Martellus Bennett owners, and I think you need to put him on the bench until further notice. They give up the 12th fewest points to tight ends.
That's sad.
It is.
Sad.
He's one of my favorites, so it's unfortunate.
Breaks my
New York Jets 5-4. The Houston Texans 4-5.
In case you need more reasons to love Ryan Fitzpatrick, he has thrown 11 touchdowns to just 1 interception thus far this year when he's been in the red zone. This is tied with Tennessee Titans quarterback, Courtney's favorite, Marcus Mariota, the second most touchdowns without interception in the red zone. Now, Fitzy did have surgery on his thumb on Friday, but he's expected to play this week, ready to start. Post-surgery, he's been looking good in practice. They say everything looks great. Everything points to him playing. Keep on keeping on with Fitzy. Again, you're really only playing him in a 2-quarterback league, but you know what? I love me some Fitzy, so I'm going to talk about him. Brandon Marshall, he was helped off the field by trainers in the 4th quarter after he was tackled. This was against the Buffalo Bills. But he did return to the game. He had 3 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. So he's Brandon Marshall. He's probably still going to score. If they didn't get you high yardage, he's still going to be targeted in the end zone. Don't feel too bad about it. And Mr. Eric Decker, like Alan Hearns, continues their race.
Yes.
Wide receiver, too. 6 catches for 85 yards, and of course, a touchdown. Yeah.
I believe I ranked him higher than Brandon Marshall this week.
Why not?
Why not?
I probably
Drop
would.
the mic.
Now, Brandon Marshall, he has hurt ankle and a toe, and Decker has his hurt shoulder. They were both
Like all
out
season.
on practice Monday, but they were both practicing Wednesday. Brandon Marshall was limited. Eric Decker played in full. More reason to go with Decker more so next week. this week, sorry, than Brandon Marshall. I like Mason Decker. And Chris Ivory, he had another great game. He had 18 carries for 99 yards. He had 36 yards on top of that with 2 catches. The good news is Ivory, he looks better like he did at the beginning of the season. He's got better cuts. He's got the burst. He's got some break-off runs. This is what we were hoping to see, and it's what we were not seeing the last few weeks, which made us nervous. I am back on the Chris Ivory train. I like it. I feel good about it. They give the 11th most points to running backs. He's given another fantastic game.
So I am benching Justin Forsett for Chris Ivory, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jets give up the 10th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and Brian Hoyer is in concussion protocol, and it may be TJ Yates. I don't either of them. Listen, the quarterback situation this year is just nuts, just in general. Watch the injury reports. As of now, on Wednesday, we're going to go with the assumption that it's going to be TJ Yates because Brian Hoyer has not been cleared. So, yeesh. It's a quick turnaround because they played on Monday Night Football. I just don't feel good about this. Allen Robinson had a nice game against Revis, and I think DeAndre Hopkins might too.
Yeah.
I think Nate Washington might have a nice game as well against Antonio Cromartie and the rest of the secondary that's kind of So if a number 2 guy is big, it's Nate Washington. However, last week, Nate Washington and Cecil Shorts basically both stunk it up. It just kind of they negated each other and became nothing. So if you are looking for something, some guy with like a lot of upside or, you really need – I still don't know if I'd go Nate Washington, but there is a possibility is what I'm saying. The Jacksonville Jaguars made it possible to imagine a world where you can score points on the Jets. However, Sammy Watkins was terrible against Revis.
But he's always terrible against shutdown corners.
Always terrible.
Yeah.
Pretty classic. And also, Alfred Blue. Whoa. I think he's just here to disappoint me. That's the only reason he exists. 3.1 fantasy points last week, 7.2 the week before. Is not Arian Foster. Newsflash. Jets give up the 4th fewest points to running backs. Oh, and then I forgot. Tight end. Oh, this is kind of fun, though. If there's one player that you can kind of consider, it's Ryan Griffin. He came off of IR last week. He caught 3 of his 6 targets for 36 yards. Not great. But if you need someone in the tight end position to pick up, if you're a little nervous about the Gary Barnidge situation with Johnny Manziel or what have you, I still would start Gary Barnidge. Don't get me wrong. But you might want to back up, right? You're like, I don't know what's happening. This guy might get really involved. 6 targets for a tight end is not bad first game back.
Barnidge is on bye, so...
Yeah, and Barnidge is on bye this week anyway, but I'm saying, like, some people are kind of getting into playoff mode where they're collecting people just in case, and he's someone that no one probably has heard of yet, and you might be able to get him.
Good. I like that. Washington Redskins 4-5 at the Carolina Panthers 9-0.
Well, Courtney, Mr. Kirk Cousins.
I told you.
Great game as expected. He completed 20 of his 25 pass attempts for 24 yards and 4 touchdowns, which was his career high. Congratulations, Kirk Cousins. Although you better have a good game against the New Orleans Saints. It doesn't get a better matchup than that. With that same train of thought, the running backs also actually had a good game. Alfred Morris, who's hurt his rib, returned to the game after leaving with that rib injury. But he finished with 15 carries for 92 yards and 3 catches for 14 yards. This is the best he has done basically all season. The good news is that Alfred Morris did practice in full on Wednesday, so the rib injury doesn't seem to be anything that's too concerning. Matt Jones had a heck of a game with 11 carries for 56 yards, but more importantly, 3 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown. I do want to warn you, do not put him in your lineup this week.
Agreed.
Do not put him in your lineup this week. They were playing the Saints. This is what Matt Jones has done all year. He has one great game. Everybody gets super hyped up and excited, and they put him in their lineup, and he gets you 2 points at best. Do not put him in your lineup this week. Don't do it. Anyway, Jordan Reed you can put in your lineup. Yeah. He had 3 catches for 29 yards, which is nothing to write home about, but he had 2 touchdowns. Reed is not targeted often, but he has become a very trusted person for Kirk Cousins in the red zone. He's a big body, and Kirk Cousins likes to throw him to that in the end zone because he's assured he's going to catch the ball. This is a tougher matchup, but I have a feeling that he will still find the end zone this week. I do. I like it. I like Jordan Reed. I don't know what to tell you about Deshaun Jackson, guys. I would tell you to bench him right now, which means he's probably going to blow up on your bench. But Crowder's probably a safer option. He had 60 yards. He'll at least get you points. He's not going to zero out. And he had his first career touchdown, so congrats to you, Jamison Crowder.
Nice. Panthers.
I'm not playing any of those wide receivers, just that Panthers defense. In fact, I think the Panthers defense are going to expose Washington. So if you want a defense, I think they're an option. Why are people so upset about Cam Newton celebrating in the touchdown?
I don't
He's been doing
understand
this his whole career.
His whole career. What's the big deal about this?
Oh, yeah, the
They're
internet.
trying to say it's because you're a quarterback and you should conduct yourself differently. And I'm like, come on.
He's Superman.
Stupid.
People
It's
have
'cause they just
so
don't
much
like
free
him.
time.
They
Yeah,
just don't like him. He's cocky. They think he's cocky, so they just don't like him. He has a personality. He has a character. You know, and he that's what he wants. You know, so he's going to get polarized opinions on him, and it is what it is. And I think it's silly because he's a good person. He does good things for a lot of people.
And his touchdowns aren't like inappropriate celebrations either.
Yeah,
he's not,
his celebration wasn't weird. I mean,
no.
so he has a
I'm
wide
sorry.
receiver attitude. Okay.
That
He
mom
runs like
letter
a
made me throw up.
linebacker. Okay.
The mom letter was ridiculous.
Disgusting.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, no, mom about having to explain sportsmanship to her child. And you're a role model. You should know better. I was like, you are disgusting, and you need to just stop talking.
Ew. Ew.
I was really mad.
Parenting, guess what? Parenting is not Cam Newton's job. Parenting your
No.
child.
No.
It's your job.
No.
It's your job.
No.
And every other position is allowed to do a celebration. Why would quarterbacks be any different?
It's absurd.
Get over yourself.
He's also been doing this for his whole entire career.
His
Again,
entire career.
I
This
just don't
is
know why
nothing
today
new.
we're talking about it. It's because people are bored and it's the internet and they just
It's
have to be
because they're doing well, and all of a sudden now he's being held to some
Yeah, it's because
ridiculous
they're 9-0.
standard.
It's because they're 9-0.
So now people are paying attention. He just didn't score as many touchdowns before. Anyway, that's why they didn't win. Just another 20-plus point performance from Cam Newton because that's what he does now.
Cam and Cam.
It's not the same kind of matchup as other quarterbacks because of his running. So, sure, Washington supposedly gives up the 13th fewest points to opposing quarterbacks, but he runs. It's different. He's a completely different type of person.
Animal.
I would
He's
almost
an
say he's
animal.
matchup proof at this point.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. That's what I'm
he's
saying. Like he's
matchup
just like a completely different enigma. He has 4 20-plus point performances on the season. His only games with less than 16 points came in Week 1 at Jacksonville, which was borderline last year. It was so long ago. And then Week 7 versus Philadelphia. But Philadelphia is good against the run. See? And they keyed in on him. So that's how that worked out. You can always start Greg Olsen. Old Faithful last week was one of his down weeks. He still caught all 8 of his targets for 80 yards, and he's a tight end. So It's like, hello. Washington gives up the 5th fewest points to tight ends, but who cares? He's a wide receiver basically for them. And what do they do with wide receivers? They give up the 7th most to wide receivers, and there are none on Carolina.
Right.
Stop. Tegan Jr. was the number 1 wide receiver last week for Carolina. He caught 4 of his 8 targets for 45 yards. Number 1. We're number 1. And then Jonathan Stewart had another nice outing. Since the bye week, they've given him 20-plus touches every single game, so he is a must-start.
Love him. Dallas Cowboys 2-7. The Miami Dolphins 4-5.
Romo is back. He will save America. He will save you and you and you. It's all happening.
I love that Corey Parsons changed his profile picture to like the Tony Romo picture. Did you see that?
Yes, of course. Cowboys fans are going nuts. They're going nuts. So like their brain is like, we're gonna.
Their love for Romo has definitely been exponentially.
They're 2-7
growth this year with it.
This
Yeah.
is the moment. I love it.
They're in the playoffs because salvation is found.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But listen, Miami gives up the 11th most points to quarterbacks, so that's good news. I still think it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride, but there are some good things that are going to happen. First of all, Dez Bryant, you could expect more from him. He, in Week 9, not last week, but in Week 9, he did catch 5 passes for 104 yards and a touchdown. But other than that, he hasn't scored over 5 fantasy points all season at all. So if Romo's back and is going to throw it to him, I think that's a benefit. And it looks like there's a drop-off maybe happening with McFadden. There's some weird stuff. It's also Matt Castle. I don't know. But you'll really know more at the end of this game. Miami gives up the second most points to opposing running backs, so he should get his groove back. If he doesn't, I'd be a little concerned, and maybe he is starting to tire out. But hopefully he's A-okay. He's certainly getting the workload again. Workload, opportunities, points. Yahoo is predicting 7.7 points for Witten this week in standard scoring, not in PPR. Now, I'm assuming this is because Romo's back, I guess, this Romo effect. But Witten has only one outing with him scoring 7.7 points or more, and that was in week 1. They gave up the 15th most points to tight ends. Terrence Williams is barely even on the field, very ugly. And Cole Beasley scored 0.8 points last week, so life is normalizing. It's definitely the Romo effect.
Romo effect. Well, let's keep this quick for the Miami Dolphins. You are not starting Ryan Tannehill. Dallas gives up the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, and Tannehill can't seem to manage both yards and a touchdown in a single game. So he's done. Sorry, you're out. You are starting Lamar Miller. He has scored in the last 5 games, and Dallas gives up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. You can start Jarvis Landry because you have to, and Dallas gives up points to wide receiver ones, often, so that's a thing. He also sees too many targets to bench him. Again, PPR, duh. Rashard Matthews is only a start in 3 wide receiver sets, leans this week. This is just not a great matchup. If you have a better matchup with different wide receiver, I would do so. Ajayi could be a good flex play this week because the floor is so low or so high with this great matchup. So it's possible that him and Miller can have a successful game. And by successful, I mean 8 fantasy points. That'll be really big for him because he's gotten 4 in the last 2. So that's,
why do people talk about him like he's the second coming?
I have no idea.
It's crazy.
He's a very talented running back coming out of college, and he is great, and he should have been really good. The problem is he doesn't have a kneecap. And that causes,
that's a problem.
It's an issue when you're playing in the NFL. So I don't know how long he's going to last. He is explosive. He is getting the yards off of a few touches. So I think there's a possibility that he could have a few really breakaway runs. And therefore, he might be a good flex play, a risky one, but, it might pay off for you. And not news, but Jordan Cameron still sucks. So let's move on to the afternoon games. Kansas City Chiefs 4-5, the San Diego Chargers 2-7.
Charkandrick West, another contrarian play that worked out last week. Maybe the greatest pickup of the year, actually. For those of us that spent all of our fab money on him, I'm like, oh, thank goodness that worked out. At Denver, he rushed 24 times for 69 yards and a touchdown. He caught 3 passes for 92 yards and another touchdown against Broncos. That's crazy. It's very interesting when you consider his predecessor. He definitely has that even game. Andy Reid was right. He is like him. It does also worry me about Charles coming back and what they're going to do with these guys. Start West with pride, though. San Diego gives up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. This is juicy, gooey. All the things I want. 14th most points to quarterbacks is what the San Diego Chargers give as well. But you know what? Even when Kansas City embarrassed the Broncos, Smith only scored 15.46 points. So, ew. San Diego also gives it the 8th fewest points to wide receivers. Macklin hasn't had a double-digit fantasy appearance since week 4. He's still trying to get his groove back since that concussion. You can put him on your bench. And then Travis Kelce, he's getting the targets. It's just not productive. Last week, 9 targets for 5 catches, 36 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns in week 1, and he scored 1 touchdown in week 8, and that's it. And without the touchdowns, he's only getting 30 yards. And if you're in a standard league, it's not happening. So if you were debating between Eifert or Barnage and then Kelce, I hope that you made the right choice because it's been a tough year.
It has. Sad. Chargers. To be honest, I am not in love with this game. I love the Chargers, but with all these injuries, this game could be really bad. Just could be. Quarterback hasn't thrown for over 20 fantasy points in 6 weeks against the Chiefs. With 2 wide receivers down, I am not playing Phillip Rivers. Sad. Oh, he was doing so good. It's just It's not my thing. Antonio Gates is still listed as questionable and has not done much since he injured his knee. His knee is really affecting this old man, Rivers, and he just can't seem to shake it. So sad. I'm sure he'll see the targets. So in PPR, you can still start him.
Yeah.
Because he'll still get the receptions. It's just I don't know what all he can do with it. Love Danny Woodhead. The Chiefs give up the 8th fewest fantasy points to running backs. I say that because, but Danny Woodhead's not your traditional running back. He's a receiver that is listed under running back. So they might use him a lot now with Keenan Allen and possibly Malcolm Floyd being out. It's just not my favorite matchup. So if you have a better matchup, I'm going to go with that person. Danny Woodhead's still a fine flex option. Stevie Johnson has the best matchup by far, so you can start him. He was targeted 10 times last game. Dontrell Inman is the next man on the depth chart.
Inman is awesome.
Inman.
I'm in, man.
I'm going to Dontrell Inman.
Inman.
But he's a bit of known. He did fumble the ball last week, or the week before last. So if you're stretching, Inman is your man. And as I said, Floyd is, I would say, doubtful. He's listed as questionable, but I'm going to say doubtful for this game. And his return to the season is questionable. So sad. Because he too was going to retire. Both guys who said they were going to retire this year got injured.
It's really sad.
Suns are gone. Green Bay Packers 6-3 because they all of a sudden suck. At the Minnesota Vikings 7-2 because they are all of a sudden awesome.
Yeah, the Packers are having a heck of a time trying to win a game here. Whoa, Lions. But Rodgers is getting fantasy points again. Thank goodness. Whew. Yeah. 32 points in Week 9, 22 points in Week 10. Minnesota has a tough defense to give up the 7th fewest to opposing quarterbacks, but I'm still playing him. He's getting it done right now, thank goodness. But not in daily. He's too expensive still. And he's on the road, and historically he's not as good on the road. However, he did have that 32 point performance against Carolina on the road, which is a good defense. So he's a little confusing. So, anyway, if you're in season long, you're starting him, and you're glad that he's turned a corner. Eddie Lacy didn't even suit up last week because of a groin injury. If you don't have James Starks, you don't have a running back on the Green Bay Packers on your fantasy team. So get with the program. It happened very quickly. It's very sad, but it's true. They don't give up a lot of points to opposing running backs, 7th fewest. And last week he only went for 42 yards. That's Starks. So Devontae Adams had 21 targets.
Insane.
21 targets. However, he only caught 10.
Hello, Evans.
For 79 yards. I'm totally confused. Cobb had 10 targets, got 5 for 53. Jones was only targeted twice and
non-existent.
0 catches. Minnesota gives up the 9th fewest opposing wide receivers. But hold on. The only wide receiver that talked to the press last week was James Jones, and he went out there and took full responsibility and was the leader for that team. I think there's a possibility he gets more work based off of his actions and his taking responsibility.
That's nice.
It's just funny because he only got 2 targets.
He only got 2 targets.
How much responsibility can you take with only 2 targets? But
I completely agree.
Stand-up guy, so.
Now, this is really scary. But you know who was responsible for all those points? The tight ends. Yes, more than one tight end for the Green Bay Packers. Richard Rodgers, if you can believe it, he caught all 5 of his targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. And the tight end, too, caught 5 of his 6 targets for 58 yards and a touchdown. It's bizarre.
For a team that hasn't used tight ends in a long time, it is so shocking.
Yeah, Richard Rodgers is becoming a thing. I said he wasn't going to be a thing, but he's becoming a thing. And then I say that, and he will stop being a thing immediately. It's because of Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy. So listen, first of all, I'm going to do this like really quick. Jordy Nelson being out is huge, but I actually think Eddie Lacy coming in and not being ready to play was even worse. And I think that they've been trying to put the pieces together ever since they realized Eddie Lacy was not the same guy they thought he was. And I think that's why this tight end thing is starting to happen. I think they're trying to find any kind of short yardage that they can.
Lacey, I feel so bad.
It's really sad. Me too. He's like the new Trent Richardson.
No, don't insult
Well, let's
him
talk.
like that.
Let's talk about a running back that has longevity in the NFL thus far. Adrian Peterson is coming off 2 huge games, including an 80-yard touchdown last week. Amazing. The matchup doesn't concern me, but the injury that AP suffered from on Sunday does. So he was limited in practice on Wednesday. He's listed as questionable. Keep an eye on his injury throughout the week. It really is going to be a toss-up on whether or not he plays, so that's a thing. Teddy Bridgewater has yet to have over 19 fantasy points this season. Probably not going to happen to this game either. So, bye-bye, Felicia. If AP does not go against the Packers, I think Stephon Diggs will have a bounce-back week after only having 40-something yards for the last 2 weeks, so, and without a touchdown. If AP does play, I see 8 points in his future. So better than the last 2 weeks, but not what we were hoping for still. No one else on this team is worth a start other than the kicker, Blair Walsh. Don't start the defense either. And that's my analysis for the Minnesota Vikings.
Wow.
Well, is there anybody else to talk about?
No. Well, Kyle Rudolph, maybe. But...
Absolutely not.
No, he is terrible.
Terrible. The worst.
I'm hoping Stephon Diggs comes back.
Not the
I'm
worst.
like good mojo.
Kyle Rudolph's the worst. He's like 2 or 3 pointers every week.
Yeah. No.
Or gets a touchdown.
No.
When was his last touchdown?
Never.
I don't know if it's never, but it's been a long time.
Google it. Let's see if he's had one this
I'm
season.
gonna look for it right now.
I don't even think he has. If he did, he got a fumble because I don't think he has had 7 points.
He has 36 points in the season. Oh no, he does. He has 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
No.
But he must have lost the ball because he scored 6.9 points, 7 points, and 9 points with touchdowns. Yeah, he's fumbled in every game he's had a touchdown.
Yeah. See? He's worthless. San Francisco 49ers, the Seattle Seahawks 4-5.
All right. The talent isn't as high on this team as it is on other teams. There's no doubt about it. But they are still athletes in the National Football League. And shame on the Atlanta Falcons for doing 0 game planning to play the 49ers in Week 9 and losing to them. It is completely your fault, Atlanta. That is 100% on you. Shame on you. But get it straight. Blaine Gabbert cannot be played under any circumstances ever, especially at Seattle. Because, yes,
especially when
Palmer,
Hasselbeck is out there.
That's right. This has when he's the top scorer of the week, you're just going to come like smeared in my face.
I don't think
you're going to poop emoji all over me.
I just enjoy
that
saying
needs to be your bold prediction. That has to be your bold prediction for a Sirius XM show.
There you go.
It has to be.
Hasselbeck's going to do well?
Yeah.
Arizona played well in Seattle because Arizona has Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael. I mean, they have 2 Browns that have first names that start with a J. They didn't.
So confusing.
Jaron and John. It's very hard to tell that apart when I say it out loud. But yeah, they don't have that in San Francisco. So stop it. Stop. Blaine Gabbert, even in a good game, scored 14.6 fantasy points. Carlos Hyde still isn't playing in practice, so you can't count on him. Seattle gives up the second fewest points to to running backs, and Sean Drawn ended up being the guy, not Kendall Gaskins. So we were trolled, but Drawn carried the ball 16 times for 58 yards and caught 4 of his 5 targets for 38 yards against Atlanta. That's still not enough for me for fantasy, and certainly not in Seattle. And the weird turn of events, Garrett Selleck was the star at the game against Atlanta. He caught both of his targets for 12 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is how they won the game.
The Selleck brothers were on fire this last weekend.
Well, Selleck was in Week 9 because they had a bye last week. But yeah, they're back-to-back Selleck.
Back-to-back Selleck, things I never thought we'd say.
Never thought I'd say. Crazy, crazy things. So, no. That's my analysis. No.
Seahawks.
Can I also just say no for the Seahawks?
Yes, you can. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, no. Russell Wilson completed 14 of his 32 pass attempts for 240 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception against the Cardinals. He also ran 6 times for a sad team high of 52 yards. Sadly, this was one of his better games all year, and he still fell outside the top 10. You have other better options than to play Russell Wilson. It's a sad fact, people. Look elsewhere. Marshawn Lynch has a hurt abdomen. He ran 8 times for 42 yards and he had a touchdown. But he also had 1 reception for 8 yards. Here's the deal. Lynch is averaging 1.6 yards before contact, which ranks 47th out of 50 running backs, according to ESPN stats. He is just not playing great, guys. You have to look elsewhere for an RB1. You're probably still going to play him, but the expectation needs to be way lower than it has been in years past. He's just not playing well. He's hurt. The Seahawks as a whole aren't doing great this year. It's a different game. Same with Jimmy Graham. 3 receptions for 41 yards. Thanks for the consistent mediocrity, Jimmy Graham. Thank you. Although I'm not going to say that's entirely your fault, but you kind of knew what you were coming to when you came to the Seahawks. And the ever so fun carousel of who will be the top receiver out of the Seahawks. Last week it was Doug Baldwin. He had 7 receptions for 134 yards and a touchdown, which is actually really, really good.
Yeah.
And he was targeted 10 times, which would be fantastic. And be like, yeah, well, he'll probably do well next week. Well, the bad news is he didn't participate in practice Wednesday due to a hurt toe. And rarely does a wide receiver have back-to-back great weeks. So it's going to be somebody else. Probably Paul Richardson next week, for all I know. He caught 1 ball, so they're probably like, you know what? We should target him more next week. That's how it's going to work. Stay away from all of them. I don't like it.
Could this be Jimmy Graham's week?
No.
Okay. Well,
No.
asking.
No.
I don't think he's going to have one of those.
Game. I just,
Sunday night game. Cincinnati Bengals 8-1.
Oh.
The Arizona Cardinals 7-2. Ashley, you be nice to our friend.
I will. This was surprisingly a boring game.
Really bad.
Andy
Good. It
Dalton-
was good, but it was boring.
Yeah. Andy Dalton played 22 of his 38 pass attempts for 197 yards, which is, okay. He had no touchdowns and 1 interception against the Texans on Monday. Prime time. But it wasn't awful. The game was just a low-scoring, kind of boring game. I will say that ESPN magazine came, and my fiance is like, you ordered porn? I'm like, what? It was Andy Dalton on the cover, and I was like, yeah, yeah, Andy.
Cute. My mother-in-law's in town right now, and she just thinks he's adorable.
He is adorable. The whole team just didn't play great. It was just a weird game.
AJ
It was a weird
belongs in The
game.
Incredibles.
He does. The Incredibles.
But you know what? I will say this. I'm sick of everybody saying, oh, that's it. Oh, we knew it was coming.
No.
It's like, screw you.
No,
He's been 8-0. He's been doing great. He's had a fantastic year. He was in primetime last week, and he did great.
Fine.
So you screw yourself, you people.
It
Stop
was a
being
weird game.
downers.
And the Texans D finally came to play. Well, I shouldn't say
did.
finally. They actually do well in all most categories, but they came to play and they prepped well, and it was a classic football game where there just wasn't a whole lot of scoring. AJ Green hauled in only 5 receptions, 67 yards. Marvin Jones only had 4 for 44. It was just a weird game. It just felt weird. And this might be another weird week, to be honest with you, but I'm not giving up on any of these guys. Giovanni Bernard had 8 carries for 36 yards. Not great. But he also had 43 yards with receptions. But even worse was Jeremy Hill, which we could tell you week in, week out. He ran the ball 7 times for only 15 yards off 7. Guys, I just can't. I cannot do it.
Stop with Jeremy Hill.
I am formally requesting a powwow with offensive coordinator of the Bengals to see what in the world you think you should do. Continue to roll with Jeremy Hill as your RB1. Please let me know your availability. I will open up my schedule to meet with you. Thank you. I am over the Jeremy Hill situation.
I will open up my schedule.
I will open up my schedule. I will. You're welcome. But it could be another weird week, but I still love these guys. Don't give up on them. Don't. I'm not buying into that garbage that Courtney was just talking about.
That's right. Same thing, Cincinnati's defense is pretty good, so this is going to be a tough matchup for the Cardinals, but like Cam Newton, Carson Palmer is matchup proof, my friends. He is. He was still able to get 21 fantasy points against the Seahawks. His floor is so high, there's no need to bench him. Must start. All of the wide receivers are listed as questionable this week. Winning. Fitzgerald is good to go, I think, but both Floyd and Brown did not practice on Wednesday.
That's John Brown.
That's John Brown. If they are not a go, Jerron Brown is your guy.
Sounds exactly the same.
This is when you've got to ask one of them
worst.
to change their name to George or something, right? Like you can't have a John
George. No, they're both no. Change the Brown. Like Brown Jr. or Brown Sr.
Oh yeah,
You
one
know,
of them's probably
one of
older.
them needs to be a senior or junior. That's the change that needs to happen. It needs to happen now. Anyways, so the wide receiver situation is a bit of a mess. So make sure you keep an eye on the injury report. That's really all I can tell you right now. If any of them go, I'm probably playing them, regardless of the matchup. But just know who's good to go, who's not. And Jermaine Grisham found the end zone last week and might be a bigger part of the game with injured wide receivers. It's so crazy to say that the tight end is part of an Arizona Cardinals offensive scheme, but it might just have to happen. He definitely has the best matchup out of everybody. So Chris Johnson is still the lead back, but he is splitting carries with Andre Ellington more and more. He hasn't been as productive as I know. He's still my favorite. You know what? And he might have a big game. I'm not down on him. I'm not dogging him yet. They seem to like him more than Ellington. They're rolling with him. He's getting the touches.
They love him.
They do love him, and I love him. It was an off week with the Seattle Seahawks, so I'm hoping Chris Johnson has a bounce back week and puts all of this away, all this worries away. Monday night game: Buffalo Bills 5-4, the New England Patriots 9-0.
Guys, LaShawn McCoy looks like the McCoy of old. Dare I even say he's verging on Eagles 2013 form?
Oh,
I will say it's getting there. He had 19 carries for 112 yards and 5 catches for 47 against the Jets. I like what I'm seeing out of him. It's getting better and better. He's still not 100%, but he's looking much better, and you can count on him. What I love even more is that while McCoy has a great game, so too can Carlos Williams.
that's
He
right.
had 7 carries for 24 yards, which is not great, but he also had a 26-yard touchdown. You know, Williams isn't quite officially forcing the running back by committee situation, but LaShawn McCoy is still running well despite not being 100%. But he does need the extra rest. He needs time to heal, and this is why they're putting Carlos Williams in. And he's a good receiving back, so he's going to be used in that capacity as well. I like him in a flex role. I think he can do great. I own both of them, and I've played both of them in my leagues in a lineup, and they both do great.
I think they're going to try to give him another touchdown, so he gets the record.
He'll outright get the record at that point. I hope they do. I think
they will. Rex Ryan loves to do stuff like that for his players.
Yeah. Now, Sammy Watkins had a shutdown corner kind of game. We knew he would. We told you not to play him. But I do think he and Tyrod should have a better game this week. So I think you could be safe to play them.
Yeah, you have to pass against the Patriots. And speaking of the Patriots, Danny Amendola is going to be taking the place of Julian Edelman. Edelman's out with a broken foot for the rest of the regular season. They're hoping to have him back in the playoffs. So you can let him go. Some people are like, oh, hold on to him. He might come back early. Broken foot? No thanks. No. If you have an IR position...
And I didn't know it.
You what?
You clearly knew it. I have a broken foot.
You have a broken foot?
Yeah, I broke it apparently in... I think I broke it in July.
It's so funny. This is a funny story. And we're on air, and you guys don't know this, but Ashley broke her foot, and she went in through like, hey, my foot hurt. And they test her for literally everything under the book but like AIDS. I mean, literally everything. I mean, crazy amount of testing. And she just has a broken foot.
That's when your foot was hurting.
Everything else. Yes.
Yeah, when I was like,
broken foot.
It hurts to walk on.
It's a broken foot.
And they're like, you've got gout. And I'm like, I don't have gout.
You have RA.
I don't have gout. I don't have RA. I don't have any of those crazy autoimmunes. It's a broken foot. Yeah, I've been walking on a broken foot since July.
It's amazing.
I'm not playing football.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman knew it was broken immediately.
Yeah.
He did. Chucked his helmet down. He knew the season was over at that point.
Game over. Amendola did get 11 targets last week. He caught 10 of them for 79 yards. Opportunities are points. Points are points. You know what I'm saying? Buffalo gives up the 11th most points to wide receivers as well. It's a good matchup. LaFell caught 2 of his 6 targets last week for 66 yards. expect more from him as well. But again, these percentages of catches doesn't make me happy inside. Also, Tom Brady was talking about how wide receiver Keshawn Martin might be more involved now that Julian Edelman's out, just like James White, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lewis went out big time when he got 1 carry for 5 yards. Yeah, that's great.
Big time.
Big time. Buffalo gives up the 10th fewest points to opposing tight ends until they face Gronkowski, am I right?
Yeah.
And you start Tom Brady even in a down week. He still is scoring 18 fantasy points. Who cares? And LeGarrette Blount looks like he's the workhouse back. Like he should be. I thought the whole James White talk was crazy. 15th fewest to running backs is what Buffalo does. Again, it's the Patriots. Who cares? And they're playing at home. It's kind of sad. I'm kind of sad about this Monday night game. It's kind of a downer to go out on the week on. But maybe Buffalo put up a fight. Maybe.
I hope so.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think so, but come on, Buffalo. Make it a game.
Come on. Well, that's week 11 for you guys. Make sure you get these guys out of your lineups. Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints, New York Giants, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bye-bye for week 11 until week 12. Make sure to listen to us on Blog Talk Radio /Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes, Stitcher, Android devices. You can hear us on a bunch of different stuff. Where else can you hear us, Brandon? Just those?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what all that is. I mean, SiriusXM.
Well, obviously SiriusXM. At Saturday nights, 8 to 10 Eastern on Fantasy Sports Radio, you can hear us and ask us questions. You can call in. And make sure to subscribe to us at herfantasyfootball.com. Chat with us on Twitter at herfantasyfb and on Facebook /herfantasyfootball. Awesome, you guys. Good luck. It's going to be crazy. People are coming back. People are getting on IR. It's a journey. It's a journey, this fantasy football life. Good luck, and until next time, no more faking it.